welcome back to Historic Tahlequah. My guests for this segment of the program are Lou Alice and Bert Mahaney. And Lou Alice and I have been talking about Bear Creek, or Town Branch, as it runs through town and at the base of Bluff Avenue, and what it has meant to all the little kids. And Lou Alice, tell the story about you're losing your shoe and along about when that was.
Okay. I was in grade school, went to grade school at Sequoia, and I had a friend who lived across the creek. Well, I liked to go home with her in the afternoon. My mother had told me, don't wade across the creek, go to the bridge. Well, that footbridge wasn't there. And we got down to the creek. Creek would come up kind of high at times, you know, Mother was worried about that. So my friend said, oh, I wade across here all the time. She said, we can wade right across, it won't take but a minute. So I took my shoes off. I think they were little black Mary Janes.
Oh, yes.
Carrying them, and about halfway across, I dropped one of my shoes. And it went rolling down the creek, and we were running after it. And of course, when we got it, it was wet as it could be. Went on to my friend's house, tried to dry it off, but it wasn't dry enough to fool my mother. And so she was upset with me over that. But another thing I remember is when I was very young, we would go to visit Mrs. Cashwer, who lived in the two-story house that's in the park.
The Duncan Springs house, yes, where the spring house is.
Right, and I loved that spring house. I thought that was the neatest thing. That was so much more interesting than the kind of ice box that we had at home.
Well, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. And that stream has meant so much to Tahlequah. The first water system in Tahlequah was pumped out privately by private investors in 1901, and just a few businesses downtown, you know. And in 1902, they expanded it some, and they pumped water from that very spring house in this system. And then they went to a spring out west of town, too. I think probably where the Methodist home is now, to pump water. And in 1916, people got typhoid, and so they had to do something else. And so then they began to pump from the river in 1916, and gradually the water system grew from that. And I even made some notes. They went into steam power in 1920 with, you know, a really uptown type of water system. And in the 1930s, they bought diesel engines to pump, and then more houses in town could have water. And then they began to buy water from GRDA in 1945. But Bert, I think, was talking about the area where the fish hatchery was, where the plaza is now. Napoli's restaurant and that whole area was the fish hatchery. Bert, what do you remember about that?
Well, I don't remember a lot about it because I wasn't involved in it. It was just something that was on the street, or you know, close to the street.
Close to Muskogee Avenue, right on Muskogee Avenue.
Right. And I don't remember what year they quit operating down there, but it was
up in the late 50s, I think, probably.
I remember there was 3 businessmen from Tahlequah that bought it and started developing it.
Right. Right. Well, Mary Lou Purdy, you remember Mary Lou Purdy, she told me that, and she was in grade school in the 30s, and she said the kids would go down to the fish hatchery, and the manager of the fish hatchery had a little girl, and he'd let the children come in and even let them play around the pond sometime. And if a pond was empty, it was divided into segments for ponds, that they could slide down the slopes, you know, into those ponds. And Bert, I remember, now of course that was in the 30s, but my dad was here going to school in the teen years, about 1914 and 15, and he said the young men from the college would come down. There wasn't a fish hatchery there then, but the creek ran along back of what is now the Plaza Center or development, and he said the guys from college would come down there and go swimming in in the creek. So the creek got up at some point, you know, and would be enough for them to splash around in the creek there. Do you ever remember going and playing in the creek, Bert? Of course, that would have been later for you, but
I don't remember that.
you don't remember that. Well, I know that he said that would happen. I also know that the girls on the campus would say, those boys probably haven't had baths. They're going down there to wash, is what they're doing. So I don't know about that. And I know the kids did look for crawdads in the branch. And of course, in a very early day, when the Capitol was first started there as the Capitol grounds in 1839, that when the Cherokee people would come in for a meeting to hear the chief and everything, they would camp there by the Duncan Springs that you were talking about. There wasn't anything there except the spring, but they camped there. So Bear Creek has meant a lot to the growth of this city. Well, don't go away. I'll be right back with more Historic Tahlequah.